Hi, and welcome back to our reading of the book Gifts from the Heart by Randy Fujishin, 10 Ways to Build More Loving Relationships. We are on gift or chapter number 8. The last chapter we read was a really important gift to give, which was forgiving others and forgiving yourself. So gift 8, Enlarging Others, it starts with a quote from Victor Hugo. The supreme happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved. It's true. Several years ago, I facilitated a support group of 9 women, all returning students at our college. We met every Thursday afternoon for 8 weeks during their first semester of school so they could encourage one another as they became accustomed to college life. During their first session, I asked, "Whom do you go to when you need encouragement?" 5 of the women said they sought women friends for encouragement, 2 said their mothers, and 2 said their husbands. This surprised me because 7 of the 9 women were married. After we discussed this issue for a while, it became apparent that few husbands were able or willing to provide the support their wives desired. Furthermore, many of the women complained that their husbands didn't give any verbal encouragement during this demanding period of their lives. One exception was a tall, dark-haired woman in her early 40s who sat smiling as the other women talked. I turned to her and asked, "Barbara, you shared that your husband is your main source of encouragement. What is he like?" "Well," she began, "Walt's my number 1 cheerleader. He always compliments me on the invisible." "What do you mean by the invisible?" asked one of the women. "By invisible, I mean he compliments me on things I don't do or say. For instance, this morning we were watching the news and there's a story about smoking in restaurants. Walt turns to me and says, 'Barbara, I'm sure glad you don't smoke.' And yesterday we were at Burger King and a woman seated in the back of us was swearing at her children. Walt kisses me and whispers, 'I'm glad you don't talk like her.' You see, he compliments me on what I don't do or say, as well as on things I do." "You mean your husband actually compliments you?" asked another woman skeptically. "Yes, he does," Barbara answered. "Being married to him has changed the way I see myself. In fact, he's the reason I'm here. He encouraged me to return to college now that the kids are in college. I wish my husband was like him," sighed one woman. "Me too," added another. Barbara's husband, Walt, had an enlarging impact on her. Over the years, his compliments, praise, and encouragement have changed the way she views herself. He enlarged her sense of self. People like Walt have that positive effect on others. Every time you communicate with people, you either enlarge or diminish them by your interaction. Let's say you and I converse for a few minutes. We finally conclude our talk and part company. You could have had 2 effects on me. First, you could have diminished me by your words, actions, or attitude. Your overall impact on me could have been negative, even after a minute or 2 of conversation. As I walk away from you, I could mutter something to myself like, "What a drag he was. I was feeling pretty good until I talked with him." You could also have no conscious impact on me. In other words, I could walk away from our conversation and ask myself, "I wonder what's for lunch." I consider no impact as a form of negative impact because I was not enlarged by our interaction at all. The second and totally different end to this story is that I could have been enlarged by your words, actions, or attitude. Your overall impact on me could have been very positive, even after a few brief moments of conversation. As I walked away from you, I might have said to myself, "What a wonderful experience. I was feeling a little down before I talked to him, but now life looks a little better." 2 very different results, to enlarge or to diminish someone by your interactions. The example I used was a brief 2-minute conversation. Can you imagine the accumulated impact you have on another person over a period of years and after thousands of interactions? It is humbling to think of yourself rubbing off on someone you love over the years. Do you enlarge or diminish others with your words? Ways to enlarge others. Many intangible factors contribute to feeling enlarged by another person. No one particular communication behavior or technique can guarantee that the other person will be enlarged by your interaction with him or her. Therefore, you need to know many ways to enlarge others. Here are 6 ways you can enlarge others. Respect others, see and say the best, acknowledge others, compliment others, reframe negatives, and support others. Respect of others. My Uncle Jim and Auntie Amy have one of the finest relationships I know. Jim and Amy have consistently demonstrated a loving and caring relationship during their 45 years of marriage. I once asked my Uncle Jim what his secret was for a long and happy marriage. His answer was simply one word: respect. Respect can fall into 3 categories: respecting others as equals, respecting boundaries, and respecting differences in opinions and feelings. Respect others as equals. One of the most powerful ways to enlarge loved ones is to respect them as equals. In healthy relationships and intimate relationships, respecting others as equals is an essential requirement. Friendships and intimate relationships based on equality can grow and prosper when there exists a high regard and esteem for each other. There is a valuing of the other person as an individual equally capable and responsible of making decisions, solving problems, and discovering happiness in this lifetime. No one has to teach the other, rescue the other, or save the other. No one sees himself or herself as being better than the other. Each individual respects the other as an equal. Of course, with children, this equality is tempered. As parents, we must teach, guide, and sometimes even rescue. But their worth as human beings is always equal to ours. Their life is as important, if not more so, than ours. Within a few years, children grow into adults, and we must regard them as equals or hinder their development as human beings. Yeah. Respect boundaries. In all relationships, we must respect the boundaries that loved ones communicate, even if the boundaries seem unreasonable or silly. Perhaps a friend doesn't like telephone calls after 9 p.m. A spouse prefers you not using her hairbrush, or a child wants you to verbally say you love him every night as you tuck him into bed. Maybe you stay up until all hours of the night and 9 p.m. seems early to you, or the occasional use of your spouse's hairbrush seems harmless to you, or you demonstrate your love for your child in 100 ways every day, but don't feel comfortable saying, I love you. That'd be weird. You can enlarge your loved ones by respecting their boundaries or requests. Give them what they want once in a while, even if the boundary or request seems unreasonable or silly to you. Remember, it's not about you, it's about the gifts from the heart you can give others in this lifetime. Respect differences in opinions and feelings. You will not always hold the same opinions and feelings that are held by your loved ones. We are all different. You can and should, however, respect their opinions and feelings. One significant way of enlarging loved ones is to honor what they say and how they feel. This does not mean that you have to agree with everything they say, but you do need to respect their opinions and feelings by listening to what they have to say without evaluation and judgment. Your loved ones need to feel safe around you. They need to believe that what they think and feel is valid and legitimate as your thoughts and feelings are. If they do not, then the relationship is not on an equal footing, and you are like the parent with all the right answers while they are the children learning from you. This is not an equal relationship that encourages growth and satisfaction. Create healthy relationships with loved ones by receiving, listening, considering, and respecting all the opinions and the feelings expressed by those whom you love. See and say the best. Remember the 80-20 rule? At any given moment, 80% of a relationship is working and 20% is not. We tend to focus on the 20% and neglect the 80%. This is the true tragedy of most relationships, I believe, and perhaps of life itself. We are usually concerned with what is not right and wishing we had things we don't already possess. While we are complaining and seeking, 80% of the good things in our relationship and in our life go unnoticed and unappreciated. See the best. We need to put more energy into seeing the 80% that is working in all our relationships. The first step in enlarging others is to be willing to take a fresh look at your relationships. Focus on those things you appreciate, like, or admire about your loved ones rather than on those things you disapprove of, reject, or dislike. One technique I teach my clients and students to help them look for the best in others goes like this. Imagine your loved one will die in 1 year. The individual does not know this. In fact, you are the only one who is permitted to know the secret. But in 1 year, you will never be with this person again. How would this change the way you look at her? How would things change? How would this change the way you talk with him? Listen to her, see him. The response from the women and the men who follow this technique is twofold. First, they immediately comment on how much they would miss their loved one, even if they had been complaining about him or her just before I suggested the 1 year to live scenario. The second response is their desire to verbally communicate their love and appreciation. Isn't it funny how we can go for days, weeks, and perhaps even years without verbally sharing how much we appreciate the 80% of everything our loved ones mean to us? We may think these things, but we neglect to share them. Instead, we often talk only about the 20% of the relationship we don't like. Sometimes it takes the finality of death to force us even to begin to appreciate those we love. Hopefully that's not true. That's part of the reason why I'm reading this book. To you. 2. Say the best. Where did I live? It is only... Okay, blah, blah, blah. Say the best. The enlarging impact. Say the best. The enlarging impact we have on others begins with our decision to see the best in them. Then we need to be willing to verbally share our appreciation or compliments with them. It is only then that our loved ones become aware of our feelings. Until then, the compliment exists only in our minds. How often do we think good things about another, but neglect to share these things with that person? A teacher I know lives by the motto, if you think it and it's good, share it. His words strike at what I am trying to encourage you to do in your attempts to enlarge those you love. If you think it and it's good, share it. Those are indeed wise words to live by. We need to see the 80% that is working in every relationship and verbally share it with others. Acknowledge others. The easiest way to enlarge loved ones is to notice and acknowledge them. This may sound strange, but I have heard some men and women complain in my classes and in therapy how their loved ones will not even glance up and say hello when they enter the house after being away all day. Now, I know this is not the case in all relationships, but there are people who behave as if their loved ones are silent ghosts who move about the house. We need to acknowledge our loved ones. 2 ways to do this are to acknowledge their presence and to acknowledge the relationship. Acknowledge their presence. A simple and basic way to enlarge others is to acknowledge their presence. By that I mean let people know you see them, that you know they are in the same room. Here are some basic statements you can use to acknowledge the presence of a loved one. Hi, I'm glad to see you. I was looking forward to seeing you come through the door. Oh, I didn't know you were out here reading. May I join you? I'm happy we're home together. Those are wonderful. Acknowledge the relationship. Another simple way of enlarging loved ones is to acknowledge their relationship with you. Again, this may sound strange and unnecessary. Of course my loved ones know I appreciate and value the relationship, we might think, but we need to acknowledge relationships by saying things such as, how's the love of my life doing today? I'm happy we're brothers. You're the best friend I could have ever hoped for. I'm glad we're a family. I realize some of these comments may sound obvious or ridiculous, but they are the language of connection. It's worth a try. Who knows? A statement acknowledging your relationship with your loved ones may be just what they need to hear. How will they ever know if you don't tell them? Compliment others. One of the most immediate and powerful ways to enlarge loved ones is to compliment them. Yet this is one of the most neglected areas of communication, the art of complimenting another person. We are going to improve that skill by learning to compliment those we love in 5 specific areas. Compliment appearance. This is perhaps the easiest form of complimenting behavior. It does not require a great deal of experience or skill to say something nice about the appearance of a loved one. You can compliment body, posture, facial expressions, voice, or eyes. Here are a few appearance compliments. You look radiant. You have a wonderful smile. Your voice soothes me. I like how your eyes shine. Compliment character. The second form of complimenting requires a little more knowledge of a loved one. It focuses on the internal attractiveness of the person rather than the physical appearance. Such things as kindness, trustworthiness, empathy, loyalty, generosity, optimism, gentleness, humor, and candor are just a few of the thousands of character or personality traits you can compliment. This is a more lasting compliment because these are things that do not diminish with age, such as a nice figure or beautiful hair. Instead, character compliments are directed at the internal nature of your loved one. Here are a few character compliments. I really appreciate your kindness. Your optimism makes me feel good. I like the fact I can trust you with a secret. Few people have your enthusiasm and zest for life. Compliment achievement. A third form of complimenting is to compliment achievement. To do this, you simply acknowledge some achievement your loved one has accomplished or realized. The achievement can be as modest as remembering a phone number or as monumental as overcoming some physical disability. Here are some examples of complimenting achievement. Your photographs are just beautiful. Congratulations on finishing your English paper. I'm happy you were elected to the town board. Good work. Compliment effort. You can compliment a person even if your loved one does not achieve what he or she set out to accomplish. In our culture, we tend to compliment only the winners, those people who finish first and win the awards. But you can compliment your loved ones for the effort they put into an endeavor or project. What matters is that they tried. It is not the destination, but the journey that matters. Here are some examples of complimenting effort. I'm proud of your efforts. I'm glad you tried taking this class. I'm really impressed by the time you invested in your project. No one else I know puts this much love and effort into a painting. Compliment the invisible. The fifth and final form of complimenting is a bit unusual. It involves complimenting your loved ones on the things they don't do, complimenting the invisible. There are a million things your loved ones don't do that are worthy of appreciation, yet we rarely think about those things. Maybe your loved one doesn't swear incessantly, chain smokes cigars, or interrupt constantly, so tell him or her. I'm glad you don't chain smoke cigars. I'm going to tell that to Kristen. Once you begin to compliment the invisible, it can become fun and even entertaining to enlarge your loved one. Here are some examples of complimenting the invisible. You could have divorced me, but you chose to stay. I'm glad you did. I'm grateful you don't overspend on the credit cards. One of those things I could definitely say to my wife. I'm thankful you don't correct me when we're with friends. I'm happy you don't watch television all night long. The next is reframe negatives. A creative way of enlarging loved ones is to reframe their negative perception of a situation, circumstance, or person. The reframing technique involves seeing something from a different perspective or point of view. We are hurt not so much by what happens, but by our opinion of what happens. In other words, our perceptions of an event are often more important than the event itself. How we choose to see something is instrumental in determining how we will respond to, deal with, and resolve problems that confront us. For instance, if a loved one is fired from her job, nothing can change the fact that she has been fired. But we can view the event from a variety of perspectives. The most obvious perspective is that being fired is a terrible thing. Your loved one is unemployed and will need to find another job. How depressing. Many people would stop here, make no attempt to see this event from a different point of view, and simply become hurt, angry, or depressed. Another way of looking at this event is to see it as a new beginning. For example, your loved one can finally pursue employment more to her liking. Being fired can be seen as a learning experience. What went wrong? How can she improve? What skills does she need to develop for future jobs? Being fired can be viewed as a chance to break from the rat race altogether. She can sell everything she owns and hit the road. This one event can be seen in 100 different ways, no one way more valid than another. Despite the numerous points of view from which we can choose to see a situation, we tend to get stuck with the first interpretation that pops into our heads. We cement that perspective into our field of vision and limit our emotional responses to that point of view. In short, we are locked into only one way of seeing something. By reframing, we don't change the person's situation, we simply point out other ways of viewing the same situation. This can have a liberating effect. It releases the individual from the bondage of seeing something from only one point of view. We need to be flexible in our perceptions and interpretations of those events that make up the fabric of our lives. You can enlarge your loved ones by opening their eyes to other ways of viewing a situation. If they share something terrible that has just happened, you can reframe the situation. You can do this by simply stating, this also could mean, another way of looking at this is, another interpretation of this is, or you could also see it as, Your reframe doesn't have to be accepted by the person as truth, as insightful, or even a solution to a problem. It is simply a way to avoid getting stuck in only one frame of reference. The reframing technique may help your loved ones feel freer, less confined, and ultimately better able to deal with issues in their lives. Support others. The final way to enlarge a loved one is to be on their side rather than be an enemy or adversary or in competition. Your goal is to verbally support them in their efforts to grow, improve, or change. Often, supporting your loved ones will not require much more than saying, "I'm on your side," or "I support your decision." But it can also involve giving encouragement, assistance, and motivation over a period of years, even decades. Here are some examples of statements of support. I support your decision to return to school. I'm in your corner on this matter. Let me know how I can help. I want to support you on this issue. No matter which way you choose, the important thing is that you are attempting to have an enlarging impact on your loved ones, rather than a diminishing one. Guidelines for enlarging others. Don't be concerned or worried that you need to master all the techniques presented. It just takes one attempt to enlarge a loved one to make all the difference in the world. Your decision to try to enlarge another person is the most important factor. Don't worry about the small stuff. Just make the decision to enlarge rather than diminish. That's how you give gifts from the heart and communicate for connection with those you love. The following 6 guidelines will help you in your efforts to enlarge others. Be expressive, be sincere, be specific, be limited, be altruistic, and be persistent. Be expressive. The number one guideline to be expressive both non-verbally and verbally. The number one guideline is to be expressive both non-verbally and verbally. No matter which enlarging technique you try, the important thing is to express it verbally to your loved one. All the kind, supportive, appreciative, loving, positive, or uplifting things you think for someone are of little good until you express them. Remember the motto, if you think it and it's good, express it. Be sincere. No matter what you choose to share with your loved one, be sincere with your compliment, encouragement, or positive vision. Share only those comments that truly express what you think and how you feel. People generally can sense if you are being insincere, and they will begin to distrust your statements in the future. Here are 3 questions you can ask yourself before attempting to enlarge someone. Do I believe this statement? Do I want to share this statement with this individual? Do I feel this statement will enlarge this individual? I actually started kind of this after I read this. I started thinking to myself, if I say this, is it going to have a positive impact or a negative impact? And when I kind of started looking through this frame, I found myself not saying a bunch of stuff, which kind of made me feel bad about myself a little bit, because it's like, do I really say that much negative kind of stuff? And the answer was yes, I was. And not really intentionally, but it wasn't helping. It wasn't enlarging them. So I love this. If you answer no to any of these, so the questions are, do I believe this statement? Do I want to share this statement with this individual? Do I feel this statement will enlarge this individual? If you answer no to any of these questions, think twice before sharing the comment. The purpose of enlarging statements is to make your loved one feel better, but if your loved one senses you are not being truthful or sincere, you have defeated your purpose. Share only those things you feel sincerely. Be specific. Make certain your comments are specific. The more specific the statement, the higher the probability the other person will accurately receive the message. Vague, general statements leave too much room for misinterpretation and misunderstanding. A specific statement leaves much less to the imagination. Consider the following statements in both their general and specific forms and decide which one communicates a clear message and has a greater impact on you. You're a really great person. General. I appreciate your smile and direct eye contact. Specific. Thanks for everything. General. Thank you for your $25 contribution. Specific. You look good. General. Your meditation has made you appear much more relaxed. Specific. Be limited. When you use enlarging statements, limit them. By limit, I mean don't go overboard with compliments and words of encouragement, especially if your loved ones aren't used to you saying anything positive or affirming. Take it slow at first. You don't want to overload your loved ones with a stream of enlarging statements because you could easily overwhelm and confuse them. They might not know what to do with your radically altered way of communicating. Try 1 or 2 comments each day until you get the feel of delivering enlarging statements. Once you feel comfortable delivering them and your loved ones become accustomed to receiving them, then you can gradually increase them. You don't want to scare the ones you love. You simply want to connect with them in positive ways that will make them feel better about themselves. That's right. Be altruistic. This guideline is perhaps the most difficult. Be altruistic when you attempt to enlarge others. By altruistic, I mean you should enlarge others unselfishly without expecting anything in return. That is truly a difficult task, to expect nothing in return. But you are more than capable of meeting the task. Instead, focus on giving a gift from your heart, the process of enlarging others. Be concerned about doing your best in your efforts to enlarge and being detached from their responses to your good work. Your job is to see the best in your loved ones, communicate those things to them, and leave it at that. Do not expect anything in return. In my experience, happiness is something that happens to you when you are not looking for it. It is most often a byproduct of an altruistic pursuit. It happens most often when you are concerned about the well-being of others and attempting to encourage and affirm them. Other-centeredness. Be persistent. You might want instant results and immediate appreciation for your attempts at enlarging others. We often wish people would notice that we are being more positive and encouraging. We hope they will tell us how much our compliments mean to them. We want them to grow, improve, and develop right before our eyes. But it usually doesn't happen that way. These things take time. Change is often slow in coming, so be persistent. A teacher of mine once said, "You can either hurt or heal with your words." Your decision to give the gift of enlarging those you love can communicate acknowledgement, recognition, praise, encouragement, and optimism. You can choose to be the bearer of good news with your words and actions to those you love. If you give the gift of enlarging others, you too will be changed by your efforts to enlarge others. And then that's the end of that chapter. Isn't that great? So the activities for this chapter, 8.1 personal exploration, seeing the best in your relationship. Consider one relationship you are in and list 5 aspects of the relationship you feel are working. Remember the 80-20 rule? How did it feel to recognize aspects of this relationship that are going well? How does this realization affect your feelings about this person? How does this realization affect your feelings about yourself? 8.2, practice giving. Sharing the 80% that is working. During the next week, share the 5 aspects with a loved one you selected. Be as specific as possible. What was his or her response? How did you feel sharing these items? And then activity 8.3 is practice giving, enlarging others for one day. Select one day and consciously refuse to say anything negative about anyone or anything. Try not to even think negative thoughts. During these 24 hours, you can only enlarge other people by respecting them, seeing and saying the best, acknowledging them, complimenting them, reframing negatives, and supporting them. Wow. Were you able to be enlarging for 24 hours? If not, what percentage of the time were you successful? What was the experience like for you? It's pretty good, huh? Give the gift. I mean, it's kind of the gift of being positive. So it says enlarge or diminish, but it's really, if you don't have anything nice to say, maybe don't say it. But I mean, sometimes you got to say stuff that is true and might, whatever, but you need to. But this is a great thing. I mean, to actively engage in trying to compliment people, to make them better, to make them feel good about the 80% of things that are wonderful about them. I think that was a great chapter. So that was gift 8, enlarging others, and we're almost through this book. There's only 2 more gifts to give. So so that was gift number 8, or chapter 8 of Randy Fujishin's Gifts from the Heart's 10 Ways to Build a More Loving Relationship. And I hope you enjoyed this because I love it. I love this book. Okay, see you next chapter. Oh, remember, think long and hard about this stuff.